Hi all, Jay Stansell here from Product Coalition. Today is a new phase for the Product Coalition. We're trying something new, and what we're trying to do is really get to know the people behind products and illustrate the passion and emotion founders, leaders and key employees of great products have for their products. This is the first of hopefully many interviews with product people from around the world. We've had great interest from all different continents of people who want to be interviewed, but also want to help out with interviewing product people in their local city as well, which is fantastic. If you do want to be a product person who's interviewed, please reach out to myself. It's Jay Stansell. You'll find me on Medium as the editor of the Product Coalition. Shoot me an email, jay@productcoalition.com. Today though, we're speaking to Lee and Ricky from upspot.io. They're from a startup in Sydney. Obviously I'm in Melbourne, so there's a synergy here of two Australian groups of people helping each other out. So I'm going to cross over now to Ricky and Lee. And firstly guys, if you want to introduce yourselves and tell the people a little bit about yourselves first, and then introduce upspot.io.
Sure. Is the camera?
It's over to you. Yep.
Great. Okay, great. Thanks for having us, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Okay.
And I'll start with myself. So I'm Ricky. I'm a ex-IT consultant and a full stack developer. So I used to work at Deloitte for a number of years, and recently started working on upspot full time as of currently the mid this year. And that's basically how we met at the start. So both Lee and I both worked at Deloitte. At one point in time, Lee was my boss, so which makes things quite interesting now being co-founders. But then I think Lee can tell you a bit about his background as well.
I was actually thinking whether I should say that, but it's good that you said it. So yes, my name's Lee. Nice to meet you all. So my background is, as Ricky mentioned, I used to work at Deloitte. My primary specialization was information management and data. And the last decade or so, I've been, technology consultant up to this point where, we've started on this venture, and so how we go.
And I guess a bit about upspot. So you want to just run through what upspot is?
Yep. So upspot is a vetted marketplace connecting IT professionals to opportunities and connecting IT professionals directly to teams within companies. So looking at the larger and the wider, economic trend of relying on the agile workforce, and large companies focusing really more on hiring on-demand talent for short periods of time to tie their hiring to specific business outcomes to meet changing and immediate business needs. And we're kind of riding that trend and saying, let's build a platform, a marketplace, a vetted marketplace to connect IT professionals in the enterprise space. So you're looking at project managers, business analysts, developers, enterprise systems specialists, and connecting them directly to hiring managers, technical managers, team leads, executives, and people responsible for engaging talent and building teams.
So kind of the nutshell is that we're trying to give companies the ability to tap into the kind of agile workforce. And to become an agile workforce, you kind of there's no kind of platform out there that allows this right now or enables companies to do that. And that's where the kind of idea from upspot started.
Brilliant. And how long ago was this idea? Can you tell us a little bit about the history of obviously your relationship coming together, working together makes sense. Yeah. But at what point did you have that light bulb moment around this idea?
I think there's like many light bulb moments, but they're all not like light bulbs in the end. You realize, and we started down like the startup path maybe like 18 months ago. First, it was learning a lot. So we were still at work, working full time, and we're learning a lot about the startup methodology, how to actually create a business from scratch. What are the pitfalls to avoid? And really trying to not, take a leap of faith with the knowledge. And then when it comes to this concept, we initially discovered it whilst working. So it was kind of a pain that we encountered both. So both Lee and I have have hired people, built teams at our organization. So Deloitte, Lee's worked at a few other organizations like the RBA. So he's built a lot more teams than I have. And we always encounter the same problem. And we initially, so there wasn't like an HubSpot moment where it was like, this is the sole idea that's going to work. It always starts from a different idea, and it's kind of like a seed idea that I would kind of refer to. And then that kind of grows into what we're working on now. So, and we'll get to like how you test and validate ideas and concepts, but it always starts from a concept that kind of actually doesn't work. I don't think anyone has a light bulb moment that's like, this is a killer idea, I'm a billionaire. That just never happens.
Unfortunately. It
always starts from an idea, and you get stomped on by about 1,000 people, and then you reiterate, and you go, oh, okay, now this is a better idea.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a blend of things. And having a very, I guess, consulting background, we always knew that if we wanted to embark on a venture, it has to be a process whereby, we take learnings, and through experience, we kind of iterate on whatever concept we're working on, whatever problem we're trying to solve. And that's going to be an ongoing thing, right? Even where we are now, we can definitely see HubSpot maturing over time, providing more value to its customer base. Still, obviously working in the same space and solving the same problem, but just iterating and evolving to be more relevant to people. It was about 18 months. Yeah.
Right, brilliant.
But itself was really like the last 6 months.
Yeah, the platform itself is
the platform. But to get to that point, most people expect like the start and stop finish of a company. It doesn't really work like that. It's more of what was the start of the journey, and that was probably 18 months ago.
Okay. So it sounds like there's been plenty of learnings along the way, and I think it's quite common for people who want to go out and try and do something on their own, that how hard that can be and how resilient you have to be to push through. And I think when you said about 1,000 people pushing ideas down earlier on, I think that's probably an accurate number of people that you've got to go through to really tease out the best idea. So 6 months ago, you decided to put a label on this idea. Can you tell us about is there any key learning that you had, or a big point before you got to this idea that completely changed direction, and therefore you knew this was a right time 6 months ago to now put a badge on this and go with HubSpot?
I think since I'm a developer, and when it comes to startups, a lot of developers want to just jump straight into building a product.
Yeah.
I think the key learning for everybody here is, no matter if you're like a developer or you can build a product, the first thing you should do with any business or any startup is actually not focus on the product, but focus on the problem.
Yeah.
And I think we understood that concept before we were building things, but I don't think we understood it properly until you really understand. Like there's like a point in time where you really understand that you actually don't need a product to test an idea.
Yeah.
And I think when we got to that point, we dropped dev tools and basically tried to find approaches to test and validate our concept using any method possible, whether it's like a Google Excel form or calling up people and just getting some sort of baseline validation around a concept. And getting traction without having a product is probably critical.
Yeah. So we definitely spoke to a lot of people. We've been fortunate enough to be working in the enterprise space for quite a while now.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's most definitely reach out to people that that work in the problem space, speak to them as much as possible, and then reach out to people that you don't know and do the same. And I can't emphasize that enough. That's pretty much what all of I do have a lot of friends who are starting companies, and some of them are quite successful. And some of them are quite established now. And the first thing they always say, because we did reach out to them and say, what do you recommend? What's your advice to go out there and work on this problem we're trying to solve? And the first answer is always talk to as many people as you can for as long as you can. Get in the diaries, buy them coffees, just talk to them, right? And they will give the answers, because you can't make up. Whatever problem you're trying to solve, there's always 1,000 ways to solve it. And the more you talk to people, the more clarity you have around the best approach to solve. And that's the execution that you want. That's the answer to the execution question.
Yeah, and I think there's just a natural fear with a lot of people, a lot of startup founders, especially if you're a developer. And most startups are like 2 to 3 developers, in like a basement somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's probably just that's not the approach. And there's a lot of accelerators out there that teach that you don't do that. You don't build a product first. You always go to the market, you talk to people, talk to the customer, and it potentially even try to sell a non-existent product to somebody first, and then decide to build a product.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here, and it can be an easy step to follow, is when you're having the conversations with people to prove out what you think is a real problem, is to not pitch your product idea, but have a sincere conversation around whether this is a genuine problem that exists beyond, in this instance, just something that you used to have recognised.
Yeah, and it's definitely a very unique approach to having that conversation with people as well. I think when we first started, and it's always a learning process. So for us, when we first started, we're like asking people, "Is this a problem?" Very closed questions, and they'll say yes. So, do you think this is a good solution? Yes. I think the most important thing with discovery phase, especially looking at the lean canvas and the discovery phase, is really asking open questions. So what do you think about this problem space? How would you tackle it? What are some of the characteristics you would see that affects the market? What would you see to be beneficial to yourself or your network? And really those open questions, that discovery through open questions is what's critical in that phase.
Okay, and with a marketplace concept that you've ended up with now, for me, when I think about marketplaces, there's always two problems. There's the people who are setting up the stall in the marketplace, and then there's people that you want to come into the marketplace to buy stuff from the stall. So were those two different types of groups of people you were having conversation with? How did you find that balance of, or in this early discovery stage, did you not even know that this could be a marketplace type product?
I think we always knew there was going to be a marketplace.
Okay.
The nature of what we're trying to achieve, the problem we're trying to solve is connecting people. So the marketplace is the most obvious, facilitator or product model for that. Now, within the marketplace concept itself, there's several different types of marketplaces, and there's a spectrum of ways to approach it. You have your fully free, free-for-all marketplaces like eBay, and to a certain degree, like, Freelancer. They do, curate to a degree and assess to a degree. But you have that one end is just completely free-for-all. And on the other end, you have a very curated marketplace, such as Uber or Expert 360. They work on ensuring quality. So there's whatever, and I guess for people looking at and considering business models, it's really understand the different types or subcategories of the business model you're trying to tackle. And understanding how they work and the gotchas with that as well.
But like when it comes to what you mentioned is like the chicken or egg problem, like which one comes first?
Yeah.
That's the most common question you'll get asked about marketplaces. There's probably 1,000 books written on which one comes first. And I think the easiest answer is just to say they both come first. And that's the problem, and that's what makes it hard.
Yeah.
And for us, it was, I guess, to start off, we pitched to one side of the marketplace first. Because if one side of the marketplace doesn't like your value proposition, there's no point trying to pitch the other half. And then once you got one half on, then the idea is if the other half, if that value proposition to them works, then you might be onto something. But then again, it becomes an iterative process around exactly what each side wants, and then product is just way down the back of the process.
At this stage, I think we were looking at really understanding. Because you can't really solve a problem for a single side of a marketplace. Like you have your buyers and sellers. The buyers need to buy and the sellers need to sell. You need to provide value to both. And at this stage, we were really understanding with chicken egg, looking at which side is the most difficult to acquire for our particular type of marketplace being vetted and being, a closed marketplace being managed. Understanding how the transaction works and how to deliver value through that transaction as well, and not just to each side independently.
Okay. Brilliant. It's definitely, I think you're going to be able to write your own book on marketplaces and add it to the library of marketplace books out there, because I can only imagine how difficult it must be. But it's really interesting. I think people who are thinking about or even part of marketplace businesses and products will find it interesting to hear your side of that story as well. So we've talked a little bit now about the problem that you're trying to solve, and it's a marketplace problem. of enterprises, as I'm hearing, are finding contract workforce, and contract workforce finding enterprises to work for. Is that a clear summary, or would you adjust that?
Yep. At the very basic level, it's definitely connecting people to opportunities and connecting organizations to talent, vetted talent. But also, one level below that is actually looking at, what the current process is, which is you want to.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I think the crux of it, when it comes to product, like what we're trying to achieve here is changing a kind of incumbent process within enterprise when it comes to hiring contractors or even hiring permanent employees. And right now that process is very entangled and involves a number of stakeholders, whether that be recruitment agencies or internal stakeholders. And what we're trying to do is innovate on that business process with technology. Mm-hmm. So the technology itself, we feel, is novel, very novel solution. But what it enables companies to do is basically change their business process to optimize for, say, cost and efficiency.
Yeah.
And that's the underlying value we try to deliver.
Yeah, it's never about the technology. It's always about the business and the process that it enables.
Yeah, there's a I think, I don't know where I read this or someone told me this, but when it comes to technology, you need to separate the technology from your business right at the start. I think a lot of startup founders, especially the technical ones, don't do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you separate and you build a business before you build the technology. The technology is what enables you to scale your business. Mm-hmm. That's it. If you can think like that, then you won't be building a product for 2 years and try to release it
in your basement
without talking to anybody, which has happened.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we were talking about scale then. When it comes to the customers, how did you go about, or how did you find it scaling from 0 to customer number 1? What was that experience like for you?
Very painful. Very painful because go.
Yeah, there is no easy solution to that. I think a lot of people have this mentality where if you build something great, people will come. It's never going to be the case unless you open a restaurant somewhere where there's no restaurants. So to actually acquire customers, you have to really do the hard yards and tap into your personal network. Once again, it's important, but cold calls, reach out to people, inbound marketing. There's no easy solution. You can press a button and get a customer. It's really having to practice your pitch, understand the value you deliver, what's the best way to communicate that, and just reach out to people to see if that resonates with them. And if you have, you've done your discovery right, you do have value for people, they will come and listen to you, or at least give you their time.
So I mean, like, specifically for us, contractors was the easy side because we pitched without a product to contractors using kind of traditional social media channels and got a bunch of signups through the platform with basically no platform. And then we knew that we had the customer, like the supply side. And then for the businesses, we had to kind of really, really reach into our personal networks to, have the conversations with different businesses, cold call businesses like Lee mentioned, and use any trick that we can to, meet with the right people essentially. Yeah. And there's no easy solution. There's no like step process I can give anybody that will lead them to, getting their first business customer.
It's really a skill set that you just acquire over time. It just comes with practice like anything else. It gets better with activity.
Okay, I was going to ask, in terms of a guiding light for how you went about that, was there any mentorship? Do you use the startup community in Sydney for assistance? Where do you look for on that, I don't know, wet Wednesday afternoon when you seem like you're not getting anywhere, but you need the motivation to pick up the phone and keep calling? Where do you turn to for that?
For motivational mentorship or for both?
A bit of both. Yeah, interested to know your answers on both, really.
Motivation is our bank balance is drying up. That's one motivation. The mentorship is, I don't know, we're just kind of, we like to build things. So, when it comes to actual mentors, I mean,
in terms of sales or
in terms of people, in terms of like who do we look to? I mean, we know a lot of people in the startup community, and I think we knew a lot before we started down this journey, and you just naturally bump into a lot more people on the same journey as you. So it's more of a bouncing board for that. But in terms of like someone who's more successful, I mean, again, it's like networking. You end up networking with a lot of successful people in the process of building a startup. And we've had that opportunity to meet a lot of very successful people, pitch our idea, get feedback. And but in terms of like, we don't have a go-to mentor right now.
We don't have a go-to mentor right now. We do have several people that are, quite senior and experienced that we talk to on a regular basis. And I think that's definitely important, especially in the early stages, not to just lock yourself to a single business mentor, so to speak, but more so have, I guess, a brain tank or a group of people that you can reach out to at any time, because they all offer different perspectives. And sometimes it's conflicting advice. Directly conflicting advice. And I guess it's your job as, an entrepreneur, as much as I hate that word, and a business owner to make the correct judgment to say which path is the best path for me. You don't really, So that's really the mentorship aspect.
Yeah, I guess on top of that, last note is you need to find someone who can tell you you're doing something wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
Normally, a lot of people will just say you're doing great work, keep it up. But that's probably the worst feedback you can ever receive.
Dangerous feedback.
You need someone who can look at what you're doing, look at your strategy, and basically call you out on it, or make you answer for what you're trying to achieve, and then that can lead you to think a lot more clearer and make better decisions.
Okay, brilliant. And do you turn to each other sometimes for these conversations and sort of almost interventions as and when you need them as a partnership?
In terms to make a decision?
Making decisions, or maybe one of you come in on a Monday after a weekend of reflection and you decide to bring up, maybe we should rethink this part of the product, or who we talk to later this week.
That changes probably every 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. And we have a discussion every 10 minutes.
It's how you I guess it just happens so often because there is no right path, right? Like coming from, I guess, a corporate environment, for example, there's always someone telling you, if you hit these targets, you'll progress your career. Or if you achieve this, then you'll move up. So there's really a on-rail sort of path. But in terms of, I guess, building a business, every business is unique. There's no silver bullet, right? Every problem is unique, every approach is unique, and every solution is unique. You really, there's always an element of, am I doing the right thing? So if you're that type of person to second guess yourself, you're always kind of going, is this the best approach? Can I approach it better? And you always turn to the other person and say, is this the best approach? And sometimes they might say yes, sometimes they might say no, and you have a different opinion. And it's really working out how to achieve the best outcome out of that difference of opinion. How do you resolve that to arrive at, what's the process you follow to arrive at a destination that you both agree on, I think is the best approach at that point in time. But you will change.
Yeah, it's just because it's a dynamic environment. Because if you're talking to, for instance, for us, if you're talking to businesses and you're talking to contractors, or specifically more on the business side, I mean, you might land 10 extra meetings that you didn't intend to land in a specific week. It's a bit unplanned, or someone doesn't call back, or a meeting gets pushed back. So timelines shift a lot within the process. So your day-to-day strategy could change based on your time availability. So there's just too many things.
Yeah, you're in a constant state of flux, and I think people that are very resilient, like this guy, he's more resilient than I am, and people that deal with ambiguity and constant change and handle it very well, very stable-minded people are the ones that handle this sort of situation the best. Not saying the other people won't, but they're the ones that are built for this sort of environment.
Okay, I mean, it's just a completely different world to what most people are tackling on a 9 to 5 with schedules, meetings and strategies that were designed a year ago, and quarterly releases and all of that stuff.
I used to love that stuff.
I used to love it.
Very easy.
Like that routine gives you security, and when you don't have that anymore, it's like there goes the security blanket.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring the conversation back to the business, and want to talk a little bit around the value proposition and the benefits that make you different and HubSpot worth buying. Could you talk through some of those for us?
Sure. I'll start with just the main value proposition is that right now, like I think I mentioned this earlier, there's no marketplace that exists right now in Australia for an enterprise organization, be it their hiring manager or a partner, someone within the firm, to reach out directly to a contractor who's pre-vetted, pre-screened, and then bring them onto a project in due time. Right now, that process is entangled. You have to go through, as I mentioned, a number of stakeholders to get a contractor on board. And most of the time, the traditional way of finding someone is kind of hit and miss. It's more kind of spray and pray. Here are 10 resumes thrown at a person. They're all different. There's no kind of standardized approach to hiring a contractor in the market right now. And I think that's definitely the main value proposition for businesses.
Yep.
And there's nothing on the market that can do exactly this. There are similarities to different marketplaces that offer different talent, or they offer a different approach to interviewing. I mean, when it comes to the HR industry and the HR kind of startup space,
mm-hmm.
There's about 1 billion different startups in the market doing kind of AI, from AI to simple matching to job video interviews with candidates. Yeah. So it's a very saturated space. But what we're trying to achieve, we haven't seen done before, and which is one of the reasons why we started Upscore in the first place.
It's a big problem. I think it's a problem that everyone recognizes that exists. The recruitment industry itself is very traditional, very old-fashioned, very manual, and there's a big obviously because there's a big human element to it, right? But because of the way it's evolved over time, like Ricky mentioned, I think right now with the current process and what's commonly accepted is that people who are the decision makers, like your hiring managers, partners, are not in the forefront of hiring. And now with digital technology being an enabler, I think it's about time that we provide that capability to the people that making the decision, and give them the capability to make the decision faster through technology. Technology is all about connecting people, right? So in this particular space, we can start connecting people directly rather than have to rely on very traditional kind of manual recruiters and all that.
And then to jump onto the contractor side, because it's a marketplace, there has to be value for two sides. For the contractors, right now, if you want to become a contractor, specifically in IT, for instance, if I was working in enterprise a year ago, if I wanted to become, say, a Java developer or a JavaScript developer as a contractor, there are no tools out there, no platforms or ecosystems I can just join to work out how to become a contractor and start finding work or opportunities for myself.
Yeah. And
there's no way for me to manage that kind of contracting career. So for me, I would never do that because there was just no approach to doing that. And what we're trying to do for contractors is give them that capability, give people the capability to work for themselves, manage their career, find new opportunities ahead of time, and then give them the whole kind of ecosystem they require to function on their own. And that comes with a lot of benefits that the current contractors currently get.
I think generally speaking, there is a trend towards people wanting to kind of move to work for themselves and be independent, manage their own careers, rather than the whole kind of baby boomer mentality of let's stay with one company for 50 years, right, and make it to the top. So people are more, I guess, especially millennials, they're more free and they want to be in charge of their life, go where they want, do what they want, and still manage their career as they see fit and progress in the way that they want to progress. It's really about having that control. And obviously, there's obvious benefits to contracting because you get paid more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're more in control of the type of work you do. But at the same time, with the way the current industry is in terms of contracting, and I've got a lot of friends that contract. I've worked going from contract to contract. I've worked with a lot of people that do contract and predominantly only want to contract because of its benefits. The common problem is being that, when you're in a contract, you don't know if you can get renewed until the very last minute because of the nature of how manual it is to secure your next contract and the way that business, I guess, react to extending people for contracts, just the nature of the industry. So we saw opportunities there to actually help professionals not only manage a career, but, secure your next contract ahead of time. Don't wait for the business to make the decision a week before your contract expires, Yeah.
So long story short, it's hard to be a contractor, and businesses, it's hard for businesses to quickly find and hire a contractor that's vetted.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is great about this as well, that I often see with some startups is, and the word you used earlier, Lee, was it's a big problem. Can you talk a little bit about the size of the market when it comes to contracting in Australia? Because so often people find really good problems to solve, but they're only a problem maybe for a few hundred people. Whereas contracting is obviously, I'm assuming, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of contractors Australia-wide. So it's can you talk a little bit about market sizing and how that fitted into your decision for HubSpot as a business?
But I'll start with just like generally the general recruitment industry in Australia is over $40 billion, and the global one is over 400 something billion. I forget the number.
Just over 400.
But when it comes to contracting specifically, there are banks that spend over $1 billion in contract fees every single year in Australia. That coupled with the fact that there's a trend in the market that in the industry that companies are moving to an agile workforce. So by 2020 in the US, 50% of the workforce will be agile, whether that's a freelancer or just you're on your own, and that's that's expected to grow in the future as well. So the Australian trend is following the US trend. So we're also seeing that from working in enterprise ourselves. So when we left enterprise, we could see that shift in strategy within the firms that we were working at to a more agile workforce.
Yeah.
And that means less permanent headcount, more contractors for project-specific roles. And the reason they're doing that is because most of the project-specific roles are IT-based. And when it's IT, it's basically it's an 18-month project to deliver some sort of outcome that's very measurable, and you can hire ex-contractors to complete that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the number of things where the market space that, told us that this is a market worth going at. And this is a market worth going at in Australia alone to start off with. I mean, there's a lot of companies that want to go global from day one, but that's a whole nother discussion for us.
Yeah, but definitely, I mean, we didn't get into this space purely for the monetary reasons. I think if you're actually pursuing a particular product just for monetary reasons, passion's not really there, and you might not get the best outcome. So, and we're not completely altruistic as well, right? But it's a problem space that we're really interested in because we've worked, enterprise for so long. We saw kind of a problem firsthand. We saw that it was a problem that really needed to be solved, and we can, based on our backgrounds of development and data, we can really see that we can make a difference in a unique way and potentially build something that's quite big. And that's why we went after this. Not big in terms of the market we're going to capture, but big in terms of the ability to change people's lives, I think.
So talking a little bit more about success, on both the short-term and long-term basis, what are you guys at HubSpot looking at to measure success? What do your success metrics look like? Is it views? Is it sign-ups? Is it businesses signing on a dotted line? How are you measuring that at the moment?
Right now, it's at this current point in time, I think KPIs change over time, shift over time a little bit.
Yeah.
But for us right now, it's really, we're still early stages. We're building advocates of the product. So we're in the kind of, product market fit, trying to do that product market fit right now.
Okay.
And that's really working closely with the businesses we work with to deliver an experience that does help them save time, save money, and really want to keep using the product.
Yeah.
So I think over time that will shift. So when we go beyond product market fit, you're looking at scaling, and then that's a different. You have a different problem. I think that's something common you see as well, is that your problems, you might solve a problem now, but your problems just either increase or change in the future, and they just continuously change.
It's a pipeline of products.
So you have a pipeline of problems basically.
Yeah.
So it's a permanent, endless task list.
But Ricky touched on a good point I wanted to make. I think I should highlight is that it's, for us personally, it's definitely not just building a product. People these days don't buy products as much as they buy experiences. So whatever product you're building, it's all about the experience that you deliver to the people is a key factor.
Yeah, so you need to build products people love, which is probably like a cliche term now. I'm not sure. Just heard it so many times myself.
Yeah, very true.
Cliche.
With that experience, that quite often, well, nearly all circumstances, the first experience you have is an onboarding experience beyond browsing the website. Can you talk me through a little bit about the onboarding experience for HubSpot?
Okay, from I guess two sides. Mostly we'll just talk from the contractor side, because I mean, you need to keep people interested. There's a whole psychology around onboarding, around how to keep people interested in user experience, and that's probably like another hour conversation that we'll just, put on pause for now. But in terms of the way we've constructed the contractor side is we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to, fill out their profiles. And I think people traditionally have, they have a LinkedIn profile, they have like a Seek profile, and they, if I'm a user, you just have to ask yourself, if I was, to go to a new site and they want to ask me to input all this data about myself, I really don't want to repeat myself from a different platform.
Yeah.
So building mechanisms or features that really make it easy for a user to just go, bang, this is me. I might tweak a few things that are specific to HubSpot, which we have around skills. That's what drives, engagement on our platform, and we do measure that. And we at the start we had a really, we thought you always think you have a great user experience until you start monitoring how people are using it, and then you realize people aren't putting in data or people aren't doing this that you think was a really simple step, and then you just got to keep testing and reiterating.
Yeah.
So there's no
we
like
definitely try to approach it with a different lens. Like Ricky mentioned, there are lots of different types of profiles you have out there. What we try to do, I mean, one thing we try to do with the overall marketplace in terms of enabling hiring managers to connect to talent on demand easily is the keyword easily. So our profile is really built around using data to drive better decision-making processes, so using data to showcase people's capabilities. So we've tried to put, I guess, a lens on that in terms of building that professional side, the contractor side, and allowing people to, as they input data, as they invest in us, we give something back. So they can see their own skills matrix, they can see a different view of their proficiency and depth of skills. It's all calculated for them based on how they input their projects. So it's really kind of like working out something that's very engaging as part of that process.
And just maybe to add to that, because of our backgrounds, we're both from in a BI background as well as consultants, BI being business intelligence, which means like pretty graphs, very pretty graphs. The idea of a graph is to actually, take a bunch of information that might be hard to consume written and then convert that into something that you can just at a glance, okay, great, I get it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do that with people's skill sets, which is, currently not done in the market as well. So we are very, we're experimenting with a lot of cool features around BI and people's profiles. And you can do that in a tech space a lot easier than other spaces, say management consulting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's experimentation, UX. I've already forgotten the question that you started with now, but I've gone on a rant, so maybe stop me.
No, all good. One of the things that you mentioned earlier around testing the user experience and seeing how users are using your product. Can you talk a little bit about what's in your tool bag on a day-to-day basis? What are you guys both looking at daily, and this sort of the first thing you do after you've checked the emails in the morning on the phone?
So in terms of how we test and how we get feedback and what are the things we look out for. So we do. We have our platform. We look at how people are being engaged in it. People signing up. If they're signing up, how far do they get? And then potentially we can kind of investigate whether there's an issue there, or there's a particular feature we might look at implementing. But even before we get to making that decision, and we're quite, I guess, fortunate in this regard, is that our business or our platform is being a vetted marketplace. We do speak to everyone that comes onto the platform. We call everyone personally and we say, welcome to the platform. This is what we do. Fill out your profile. We help you optimize it. We help you present yourself in the best way possible to companies. And through that engagement, we can also say, do you have any issues? Do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns? Is there anything that you'd like to see? So it's really being very close to our user base.
It's pretty much call out every single person and ask them what do they not like or like about the products.
Yeah.
And that helps us really narrow down on, I mean, if you talk to someone and you ask them to put in a certain piece of information and that seems clear for us that to put it in, and it's not clear for somebody else, that's kind of a red flag, is to, have a chat. Why was it not visible to you? And then that helps us, with a kind of a way to design new features or little tweaks to the model to make it, a better experience.
Yeah.
other than that, yeah, we monitor the data. We monitor a few other KPIs. Again, these change over time. For the businesses, we work very closely with them, so it's more of a dialogue.
Yeah.
Which it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Other than that,
it's just being very close to users. I think coming from a consulting background, we're I guess drilled into having that customer centric view and customer centric approach to things. I think everyone should definitely have that. If you're in some sort of building a product or trying to sell something, having a customer centric view, everything from building to selling is just key to really, getting some traction and moving up.
Brilliant. So I just want to finish up. So we've talked about a lot about how to learn, how to build a business from you firsthand, which is fantastic. So just to finish up with then, before we say goodbye, what is the riskiest assumption that you guys are tackling right now?
Riskiest assumption?
That's a good question.
It's probably about 20, but you have to.
I guess one that I will point out is especially if you do a technology startup, there's always an element. Well, I hope there's always an element of innovation in what you're trying to do, right? So the risk is always, is the timing right, and is your customer base ready to adopt the innovation you're trying to give them? Because it could be perfect in your mind, it could be relevant to a lot of people, but is it the type of innovation or the approach to innovate or solve this problem in an innovative way? Are people willing to adopt that and change the way they behave? And that's always the hardest. Changing people's behaviors is always the hardest thing.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's assumption actually, that everyone will have in the future. Every startup actually is the timing thing. Okay. And there's a TED talk on this around factors for successful startups. I don't know. I'll link it below. I don't know.
Go for it.
But someone measured the factors that make a successful startup, and the biggest factor was timing. Yeah. And you can look at companies that, going back to the recruitment space, there was a company that was, I think, that was similar to Seek, that came out maybe 10 or years before Seek, but Seek was dominant now.
Yeah.
But what happened? And it's just timing. The market wasn't ready for that product 10 years ago. Yeah. So the biggest risk for us is, great, we had a cool idea.
Yeah, we want to do a process change, want to innovate on how the industry works, but is the industry ready to adopt innovation?
And that's the biggest risk. And then, you could see HubSpot 2.0 in 5 years' time killing it, but it's not us behind it.
Hopefully not. All good. All right. Look, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and giving me an opportunity to do this for the Product Coalition. It's a crowdsourced platform and publication. It's just a group of product people trying to share knowledge and news, and you've shared loads of knowledge today, and I really, really appreciate that. So for those who want to know more, there'll be some links to Lee and Ricky down below on the video, also on the Product Coalition article on Medium. So you can get in touch with these guys. Check out upspot.io as well if you want to see a little bit more about the product. Thank you both so much. We'll stay in touch, and I certainly look forward to keeping an eye on HubSpot and what other war stories you have in the future as well. Maybe we can have another call as you learn a little bit more.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it, Jay. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for having us.
And everyone subscribe to Jay's channel if they're not already subscribed. You need a flash subscribe now. Yes.
All good. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so there we have it. Our first interview for Product Coalition called Product People. Hopefully this will be a series of interviews. Bit of a test and learn for me for that one. Please give me some comments back and let me know what you thought about the interview, the structure, the quality, etc., so that I and other interviewers who look to do the same in the future can improve, and hopefully we can make this even better for you. But for now, that's all. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.